The purpose of this mini lecture is to highlight the importance of clearly defining your industry, which may seem easy, but actually is one of the trickiest aspects of strategic analysis. First of all, why is industry so important? Well, if you recall, strategic analysis is really about understanding why you win and why simultaneously everyone else loses. Why is it that you get the rewards and your competitors get nothing? But to understand why you win, you first need to really understand where you compete, or in other words, your industry or your competitive arena. Clearly defining your industry tells you where you compete. When you know what industry you're in, you'll be well positioned to evaluate the other players and determine how to account for their strategic moves. While it might seem silly, using the example of a milkshake is helpful to highlight how to think about this problem. Clayton Christensen, a well-known Harvard professor, tells the story of a fast food restaurant trying to increase sales of its high-margin milkshakes. The company did a normal market analysis, tried a few things, and found no meaningful change in milkshake sales. So one of Clayton's associates went and spent a day observing people who bought milkshakes and found something interesting. Over 40% of the people who bought milkshakes came in alone during the early hours, bought only a milkshake, and left immediately by car. This observation was a bit surprising, so this associate went back the next morning and confronted people as they left the restaurant with their milkshakes, and essentially asked them, "What job are you hiring that milkshake to do?" In all cases, these individuals had long, boring commutes. They wanted something that would help them stave off hunger until noon, allow them to use only one hand, and keep them busy on their long commute. The company was able to make changes to help milkshakes do this job better, such as making them thicker, adding fruit chunks, and moving the machine in front of the counter and selling prepaid swipe cards so that customers could avoid the service lines. They also understood that their early morning milkshake sales were in a very different industry from their afternoon sales, which focused on parents who wanted to make their kids happy by purchasing a small, easy-to-drink milkshake treat. Once you clearly understand the job customers are hiring you to do, you can figure out who your customers are, or your buyers, what and who you need to do the job, your suppliers, who else does the identical job, your competitors, and whether others will want to do the identical job, potential entrants, and who else does similar jobs, substitutes for your products and services. Now let's take a minute to talk through how answering this question of what job customers are hiring you to do can help you in practical strategic analysis. Assume that BMW has hired us to provide some strategic recommendations as input for their 5-year North American business strategy. We're going to want to evaluate where BMW competes and how BMW competes so that we can determine what recommendations to make. Students often assume that they know what the industry is right away, and they jump in head first. Do you know what the industry is for BMW's North American division? It isn't that difficult, but it also isn't as easy as it may seem. Take a moment to write down which industry BMW is in. Be as specific as possible without being too narrow. Pause me for a moment to write down your answer, and then we will go from there. Students answer this question in many ways. Some answers include the transportation industry, the automobile industry, the automobile import industry, the high-end car industry, the luxury automobile industry, or maybe the status symbol industry. It is hard to know right away which one is the best industry to use for our analysis. What we've done is just taken what we think we know and pulled an industry out of thin air that we think seems to fit. Now, if we ask the question, what jobs are customers hiring BMWs to do, we may be able to focus more quickly on the right level of analysis for our exercise. Take a moment to answer this question as specifically as possible. What jobs are most BMW customers hiring that BMW to do? Pause me and write down your answer. You may have come up with a different answer, which is just fine, but my answers are as follows. BMW customers hire BMWs to transport them from place to place in a private and extremely comfortable setting with the most technologically advanced perks in a somewhat practical body style, and they hire these BMWs to signal to others that they are high status or wealthy individuals. See, the answer to this question helps us see that knowing that BMW competes in the luxury car market is not quite enough. If we focus on the luxury car market, we might think of Ferrari, Lamborghini, or maybe even Hyundai as competitors. But people who buy a Lamborghini or a Ferrari are probably buying them to do different jobs than people who hire BMW sedans. Similarly, people buying the luxury Hyundai, the Azera in 2012, are probably not trying to signal their high status and/or wealth. They're likely buying a luxury fill at a discount price. The key point here is that among these apparent luxury car makers, we still have different customer subsets, because customers are hiring these brands to do different jobs. It would likely be unwise for us to invest time and strategic energy on competing against Ferrari, Lamborghini, and/or Hyundai. However, Lexus and Mercedes seem to be competing in the exact same space. As we analyze the strategic landscape, then we might think about the strategic moves that Lexus and Mercedes are taking, because they seem to be the most relevant direct competitors. We probably see Ferrari, Lamborghini, and Hyundai as makers of substitutes for our narrow industry, and we may also see them as potential entrants to our niche market space. We're going to talk about this idea in class, but for now, I want to emphasize the importance of really nailing down the jobs that customers are hiring a company to do. Knowing exactly what job customers are hiring you to do will be critical as you try to utilize the strategic analysis tools we cover in this course.